Welcome to the Business by Referral podcast, where six-figure solopreneurs discover the must-know secrets for getting off the revenue roller coaster and building a business that fuels their passions, funds their dreams, and leaves a legacy. We'll be bringing you how-to tips, tactics, and implementable strategies to put you on the path to building the kind of business relationships that lead to revenue and results. Now, here's your host, the referral diva herself, Virginia Muskies.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Business by Referral podcast. I'm Virginia Muskies, your host, and I'm so glad you've tuned in today. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Melissa Sierra. She's an executive coach, a strategic growth advisor, a speaker, and the founder of Focal Point Coaching. Drawing on more than 15 years of executive leadership experience, Melissa helps executives, founders, and leadership teams navigate growth, AI transformation, and organizational change by turning complexity into clarity and strategy into results. You guys know how much I love results. Oh, so much doing and not enough producing sometimes, right? Lots of busy and not enough getting on it. So listen, Melissa is the creator of the Opportunity Flywheel, a framework for building sustainable momentum through strategy, relationships, execution, and results. She's been featured in CEO Weekly and the Associated Press, and she's a member of the Forbes Communication Council and the host of Holding the Room, Leadership, AI, and the Human Edge. Her mission is to help leaders build businesses and careers and legacies that create meaningful, lasting impact. So put your hands together, unless you're driving your car, keep them on the steering wheel, for Melissa Sierra. Hey girl, how are you?
Hey Virginia, thanks for having me, and hey to everyone who's choosing to listen to us today. Really appreciate the opportunity and can't wait to dive in.
Yeah, so I'm going to start right here, which is the part that jumped out for me. Clearly you've gotten some press and you're good at communications, and I'm sure that that's probably central to everything that you're doing, right? Inside your coaching. So talk a little bit about where did that interest in communications and making sure that people are having conversations and doing the right things with the right people, where was that born?
Yeah. At a young age, it was born by just understanding why people did what they did and understanding that I loved marketing, but I really couldn't understand what marketing specifically was. So in my earlier part of my career, I wanted to do direct selling, and I wanted to do promotional marketing, and I wanted to do advertising because I thought that would lead me to be a well-rounded person. And as I started to ascend the corporate ladder, what came emphatically clear to me was that we all wanted to be seen and heard. And what we all felt like, and what constantly was this tension bubble, was the fear of being invalidated, the fear of getting it wrong, the fear of going first. And fear is attaching yourself to identity that you've already claimed without the proof points. Who says that your positioning is going to be invalidated? Who says that it's wrong to go first? And I think if we stopped being so performative and wearing the mask, which I understand coming from corporate, that it's very difficult to do, I think that we would understand that if we built time instead, building our character, then the issues would become less about self-reflection of ourselves and more about the problem that we're avoiding in these realms when it matters the most, and start solving what really needed to be dedicated and focused in and around. And I think through that, we would compound that infrastructure of feeling visible, of feeling valuable, of doing the work that mattered, of building momentum. And so that really is the centerpiece to the opportunity framework that I built, which is really around that positioning, that preparation, performing with the right standards of quality to create compounding, lasting effect for yourself.
I love that idea. And the one thing that you pointed out is something that I think I just don't even know when it got trained into the general modus operandi of society, right? Because I don't remember feeling quite like this. I always felt in my 20s and 30s, maybe even into my 40s, I felt like trying new things, experimenting, giving it a go, making a mess and cleaning it up. I always say it's like, it's not how you screw up, it's how you clean up, right?
That's
like,
right.
But suddenly there's this ethos of fear of getting it wrong, fear of making a mistake, fear of not having it right, fear. And what's worse about it is the fear leads to these untrue narratives that then become the truth, because the minute I walk into a conversation with you, assuming, I'm going to have this podcast with Melissa and she's probably going to attack me and she's going to tell me I'm wrong and she's going to be all combative. And so then I come in ready for war and you just wanted to have an interesting conversation, right? And But once I come in armored for war, well, you have to go get your machine. You have to match that. You have to go get your defensive tools. And there was no reason for it in the first place.
Right.
So why do you think it is that we've lost the ability to just assume the best or assume collaborative, positive outcomes from the conversations that we have with people?
I think we've accepted the wrong norms of leadership. I think that it's easy to fear being on an island by yourself. And I think that although in times where I've been in boardrooms where I've gone first, or I've been the only one, especially a female Hispanic and the only one in the C-suite, I've actually found that those moments have changed my own trajectory of growth, as well as giving other people permission underneath me to see that it's okay, to see empowerment look differently. And I think a lot of times leadership is posturing. And what I'd like to see more of is coming to the table with humility that builds character, with empathy that challenges what the status quo is, and really accepting that most people have the intention of doing their best and coming together and actually celebrating that for what it is. But there's an interesting person that I watch on the motivational circuit. His name is Ryan Leake. And he has really done a new doctrine, which is around what is it like to sit on the other side of me? And I think that's really important because I think sometimes we're struggling so much for our own individuality that we can't hear where the other place the person is coming from. So a lot of times we're arguing about the same thing or we're seeing the same thing, but we can't hear it and we can't lean into it and we can't celebrate it because we're so thriving and thirsting to be heard on our terms because other environments haven't allowed us to do so, that we miss the whole plot. And so a lot of the work that I'm doing is what I call living inside a leadership laboratory, because every conversation that we're exposed to, every presentation that we're sitting in, every room that we're invited to take part in, even if we're not leading, is a time for observation. And those observations, if you're fortunate enough to lean into them, unveil patterns of what will really start to connect you to intentionality, purpose, curiosity, which is one of my 3 C's that I lean into, clarity and conviction, that lead you to be the greatest embodiment of who you were meant to become, rather than just accepting the norms of what we think polishedness looks like and needs to look like.
I think also, I don't know how you feel about this, but in the age of AI, like I kind of want to put spinach on my teeth on purpose.
Yes.
I kind of want to have messy hair and I want to cough and I want to have spinach on my teeth and I want to have, I want to be imperfect because because AI is striving to be the perfect version, the perfectionist version. And that version doesn't exist.
Yes.
In the human world, right? I want to say in the real world because AI is part of the reality of our world, right? But in the human way, we're messy. We're not all that perfect.
I love that you said that because I think it's overplayed to say authenticity now. To me, that implies that then if you're just going to start being authentic, then you never were authentic, So I love, like you said, originality and just celebrating who you are, how you're showing up. Because again, how you're showing up, unless you just have no lights on, inside your head, you know that you need to come professional in your own way, but that doesn't mean that you can't celebrate the times where things might go wrong. Like I just posted a podcast episode that I uploaded through Riverside. And for the one time that I didn't check the download, the audio is not working. So one of my friends texted me and she's like, hey, guess what? Your podcast isn't playing any audio. So oopsies, I'll go back and I'll fix that later on. But it's a miss and I wish it hadn't happened, but I am human. And for all the times you think things are going to go right, inevitably they don't. And so we'll fix it. We'll move on. And that's okay because everybody started someplace. So I think if we were to have more relatable moments, we'd find that we can accept things of others come from two different opposing backgrounds, philosophies, environments. It's irrelevant. The motive that brought us into the room is not necessarily the magic that then compounds coming out of it. And I think we need to really lean into that if we want to actually attack some serious challenges, some serious obstacles that have been on our backs for a long time. And I think that would actually start to build cultures that withstand any disruption, whether that's a reorg, whether that's technology, whether that's new management. Doesn't matter where things are starting from, as long as we understand the foundation of the legacy that got us here and how we're leaning into where we need to take things through because of the human connection.
I love that. And the two things that just came up for me, and one of them just escaped me, so I'll go with the one I remember, is, I have a really good friend, and the first fight we ever had was over semantics. And it was because I define the word like this and they define the word like that. And so we're literally arguing the exact same point. We're absolutely in agreement, except we're not talking about the concept that we have agreement about, talking about the semantics on the outside. And I was talking with a friend of mine that I noticed that whenever we we're on a board together, and whenever we get into the boardroom kind of thing, the advisory room, there's one person that always seems to be in conflict with this other person. And I finally realized, I just was like, you define the word. Now you define the word. And I go, do you guys see you're actually talking, you're fighting over the word, right?
That's right.
Which has never been the problem or the situation or the concept has not yet been defined, but we're already arguing.
Exactly.
We've already taken stands. And I think that it's so critical in leadership, particularly when you're in leadership, you owe more patience, more benefit of the doubt, more curiosity, more understanding, more empathy. You owe more than the person that's walking in and sitting on the other side of your desk. And I love that. What does it feel like to sit in front of me?
That's right.
It's such a great question. The other thing that I think is really interesting that I found out as I'm building teams and being a leader is that if, as a leader, we assume that every problem, every mistake, every challenge, every failing, every miss, everything is a systems issue first. Yeah. Instead of a people problem first, we can keep really good talent. We can make them really happy, and we can make a better organization by looking at the systems. And so many times it's hard because you wrote the system. So you're like, oh, dang, my system don't work.
Yeah, it absolutely.
It's like, oh, I own it. I mean, I think that can be a real challenge when you're working with leaders. How do you get them to own that?
It's funny that you say that, because for me, it's twofold. Sometimes I find that leaders want to blame it on the system because it's harder to be accountable for people. Because people are loose cannons, right? They have their own pleasantries. They only have their own behavioral traits. You have to adjust and counter to them. What motivates one is not going to be the same as the other. And actually saying that you've failed the system is easy because it's this inanimate object, right? Like you change one thing and maybe now all of a sudden it recalibrates again. But on the other side of the thing, sometimes you can tweak little minor things between the team dynamic. Doesn't mean that people are always going to rise to the occasion. Sometimes it's the self-awareness work that gets harder to do as a leader mobilizing a team than it is doing the individual contributor work of operationalizing the system to now catch up with the growth. A lot of times to what you said, when they are saying, and they do acknowledge that it truly is a systems issue, getting them to be real with that is getting them to understand that the intention and the objective of where you started is very different than a company that's growing and scaling. So the systems that got us to whatever it is, $2 million, are going to be completely different to now the systems that we're going to need to get us to the next $5 million mark. And so I think people understanding that this is a journey and it's not finite, and that this is not a criticism of your artwork and the labor that you've put into it, is a little bit more an easier pill to swallow, if you will, because now you've matched the merit of your objective of where it was then to the realities of the truths that you're living in today. And now this is just a systems update, what we would blame things on when campaigns didn't launch on time, rather than it's your specific philosophy behind the systems model itself. Steve Jobs had many challenges along his way too, of the systems that he was creating and the intelligence behind what Apple runs off of today. They didn't want it specifically when he was working on his own and he was acting as a consultant by himself. And then they ended up buying that intelligence model for what it is today. You know, Cody Sanchez tells that story much more articulate and much more technical that I could ever do justice on. But I think the merit behind it is very much the same thing. You can build the greatest intellectual property, and yet sometimes the marketplace hasn't caught up to what that intelligence can pay off to. But you have to understand the genius of your unlock, marry to the environment that you're sitting in, and realize that ecosystem and really start to calibrate the story against it and what narrative that you want to tie to it. And if you start to do the wrong identity anchoring to it, it's much harder to then work through that strife. So for me, it's twofold. Sometimes it's when they need to really actually ascribe accountability to their team and how they're leading their team. Other times it's attaching the wrong narrative around the process or the system that they've developed in terms of where it's sitting at today and where it can take the next level to.
Got it. So Melissa, you're a solo entrepreneur, or do you have a team?
Yes. No, it's me, myself, and
okay,
I.
Melissa,
Hence why the podcast episode.
Melissa and her 8 AI agents. Got it. My team. So here's an interesting segue. You know, when you talk about the leadership and the narrative and the identity, how does some of this apply to yourself leading yourself? Because most of the listeners of the show are solo. We're doing business by referral and business through collaborations because we're not ready to put money in the Facebook slot machine and pray for a payout. And we're not ready to pay for, what is it? SEO, AEO, GEO,
all of it.
McDonald farm, you know. We're all doing it through relationships. How does the whole concept of the identity narrative and the systems and that whole piece, that leadership piece of self, how does that play out for you, like on the day-to-day?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've had to learn that the strongest referral strategy isn't asking more people for referrals, but really becoming super crystal clear about the problem you solve and the value that you create, so that the people that are within your network know when to bring your name up in a room that you're not always in. And so that connects really to the corporate executive that has this amazing, enormous network, but surprisingly doesn't know the right opportunity architecture to orchestrate around. People know them, they like them, they respect them, but they really can't articulate who they are for, what they are for, how they super serve that. So if I think about it, it's really flipping the old belief around networking, creating opportunity, to the new belief that I have even for myself is that clarity becomes the opportunity and relationships simply accelerate it.
You know, that's very interesting. One of the first things we do in our 6-figure Success Accelerator program is we dig really, really deep into clarity, because I believe automation is an amplifier, right? So,
Yes.
So people are like, no, I got to put it into go high level, and then I'm going to like automate. And I'm like, what exactly are we automating here?
Right.
Well, we're just going to like, I'm going to automate my lead magnet, my stuff. And I'm like, has anybody ever downloaded it? Have you sent it to anybody? Why are we automating that which is untested?
Yeah.
So in my world, the first place of amplification pre-automation is your referral network. But if you cannot clearly articulate the people, who do you serve? That's number one. Person. Next one is pain point. What are they suffering from in their own words? Not my diagnosis of the cause of their suffering, but their suffering. When they wake up at 3:00 in the morning and can't go back to sleep, what's the point of anxiety that they just keep rolling around in their head? The third thing is like, what's your promise?
Yeah.
What's your promise? And if they didn't, people say, well, I'll get you out of pain. Okay, but that's not far enough.
Yes.
Get you out of pain is like telling a kid, don't touch.
Yes.
They don't know what to do instead. So, and then it boils down to just having really clear process. Like you have a proprietary process, which is amazing, right? To say like, these are my steps and we're going to hit these milestones and we're going to run everything through this lens so that we know that you're moving in the right direction. How are you going to package it? How are you going to price it? And who are you going to partner with? So all of that plays into it. But until you have absolute clarity about those 7 things, it's really hard to get a referral. Really hard.
And you have to go one layer deeper. So when I first started, as a marketer, I was like, I know how to laser in and target. My avatar is someone who's burnt out, mission purpose, misaligned, that on the other side of fear is magic. That's really real. And people do feel that. And glad that I went first to say it. It resonates with a lot of people, but it's so superfluous and intangible and not crystal enough. Like, how could any of one of my network partners actually know how to watch for that? And if I can't, like you said, really train and automate them around that and be super crystal clear as if they were me presenting in a room, how the heck should they know what that shows up like? And how could they know that, like, how that's going to surface up? Like, I can, because that's my super strength, but they can't. So fast forwarding so many months of just sitting in my leadership laboratory and having my own observations of where prospecting calls had gone amiss or partnership calls really didn't land the way I wanted them to and took a hard left, 5 minutes in, it really came down to, I help people that are in an impasse really help remove what those obstacles are by understanding we're not going to go through monumental shifts of achievements. We're going to go through hard-nosed moments of advancements, because achievements are very finite. And yes, it's very exciting to hit your first $1 million mark. You get there and then you're like, okay, well, what's next? And then, your opportunity or your enthusiasm kind of goes to the wayside again, because now that next stage is difficult because you feel like you're starting from scratch. Advancements, even for myself as a solopreneur, are very exciting in that moment because motivation is fleeting. But the stickiness behind doing the boring things over and over again is because having conversations like this feel like advancement in my business, getting into the right rooms, proximity mapping with the right people, having that curiosity, which is what you led with from our first 2 seconds in, is really why we got into business, because we want to build a life for ourselves and the people around us that we curate to look very different. And in order to do that, I have to be so lasered into making it easy of a layup for them to know automatically, oh my God, Melissa is who you need to talk to. She's going to bring you a chock full of information that I can't articulate, but I know that you've been talking about XYZ. She's the person that you'll want to talk to. And likewise, for me to do the same thing and be the pebble in the pond, which is what our franchise stands for at Focal Point, I need to really be understanding what it is that you're bringing to this conversation and how can you serve. So a lot of more conversations I've noticed out in the field are people asking me that, how can I serve you? And I'm reciprocating that. But I think just getting a little bit more declarative and imperative with how we're speaking to our audience is key.
The other thing where I think this comes in that's just as imperative is we're all tuning into AI and we're all trying to use it, right? And I swear on all things holy, if I read another email from one of my JV partners, sorry if you're one of the JV partners listening right now, but I am like, you've done everything right, but you're still not getting results. I mean, I feel like I'm listening to a Ronco commercial from the 1970s, and it's so tropey and trite. And I literally now, when like sometimes my AI backslides and it knows when I type WTF, it's back again. Oh, I used trope number 57 that you banned from me 6 months ago, right? Because God, it's crazy. But when you have clarity, when you have curiosity, when you have that, and you can get that embedded into the AI brain cell, into the language models training around yourself, you really can get a much higher quality output, not only for, writing random nurture emails or whatever, but when I'm sitting there saying, I'm going to put on a summit, and this is what the summit is going to be about, and asking it questions, and it writes me how to launch this summit playbook that doesn't look like any other generic playbook. It's super personalized to the standard playbook. Looks like this. That won't work for you. What's going to work for you is one of these 3 things. Does any of that resonate? It really is conversational to me. And I think what you're talking about, whether you're leading a team or whether you're solo, really making sure that your AI has the clarity of thought that you have helps immensely. So imagine having this immense clarity around who you are and who you want to work with and what you call them. And it can tell you when you plug a name in and a LinkedIn profile and say, yeah, this person does look like that, or this person doesn't look like that.
Yes.
Which is quite amazing. Maybe I shouldn't be loving AI so much. I am digging it.
No, I love it too. And I think what you're saying is really true, because automation is great, but if you lose your individual approach, your thought, your perspectives, that's where it goes wrong. So a lot of people on LinkedIn will reach out to me to connect, which I'm open to. But then when they ask me what my perspective is on leadership or AI, I post 3 times a day, 7 days a week. If you don't know what my perspective is, why are you even asking me? Stop this. Or the alternative is I have people that will take my entire podcast, run it through AI, and then verbatim spit back to me what they liked about the podcast, to the point where I'm like, are you actually, there's no way you're freehanding word for word what I've said on these podcasts in this unique, very poised way for it to generate with you. I can tell something wrote this for you and just took everything and synthesized it in 2.5 seconds. So there's a balance, like you say, of hyper personalization to the chock full of vapidness that's out there too. And being able to use AI as your super strategic framework is your superpower, but only if you know how to prompt and only if you know how to put in the guardrails, like you said, and have it keep you honest. Don't accept the first output it gives you. Play devil's advocate back to it and make it be your workhorse, and also ask it for non-observational feedback, because the way that we get around the sea of sameness that's out there is having it lean into who your professional identity is, how you're showing up, and be able to supercharge any ideas that you've had out there, but also ones that not every AI model is going to come up with. And for God's sakes, do not use the same Claude download template that is the navy blue background with the gold. Everyone can tell it. So I don't even know if those are your original thoughts. Even if they really were, and you just had AI build the deck for you, I can tell that wasn't you, because you're using that. So try to pick up on the sea of sameness, the commonalities, and like you're saying, and really standing up of being your initial thought leader, authentic, original self, for you to preserve the integrity, because that contrarian view in and of itself is going to carry you a lot further for your referrals as well.
I love that. I have to say, you get the greatest vocabulary. I'm looking at her, I'm like, oh, that was a great word.
It's good because I'm math dyslexic and I failed on the math side of it.
So great. Like, it's like the best vocabulary.
Thank you.
So listen, when it comes to you personally in your business, what's one of the big things that you're running into right now that just stymies you? You're like, God, I'm so stuck here. Where are some of the places where, as a solo consultant, you find challenges?
I think it's very hairy for you as an entrepreneur to believe in everything that you're putting out there, get great feedback on your content, but it not showing up in revenue. And especially in the coaching world, because you're very much on the subject's timeline, right? The pain has to be greater for them to actually want to invest in themselves. And that's not for me to determine, that's for them to determine. But I think the frustrating part is being the best kept secret that at scale people don't know about, and building that new identity for people to surround themselves around. What's really been working for me in this referral sector is I think of it as old school media, that I was working in. We used to talk about trade media. So for a Broadway show might give tickets that were valued at, I don't know, $5,000 to a on-air radio station to promote them for free, because that then station would be able to give these out to clients to be able to go see a show, keep the integrity of the relation, etc. Right. So I know all these amazing vendor partners at the agency world that I showed up for, giving them business. Now I'm able to provide them strategic advisory exchange services in exchange for them to help promote me on their networks or invite me into the right rooms. And so I think if we were really to take stock in how we showed up for people, what ways we solved problems in our past, what sort of favors, if you will, did we show up for people when they were at different junctures of their careers, either starting out or starting in a new position where they needed to get introduced to the right people, how could we then ask for value? And maybe that value doesn't show up monetarily right at the onset, but even if we're getting an equal exchange of value for our services, that in and of itself is a couple of things. That's one, a case study that you're helping these big conglomerates through changes. So now you've got this amalgamation of lots of leadership laboratory testimonials in there. Two, you're now getting accelerated on your business because you've got the experts helping you with on-air promotion, social media, whatever the case may be. And then three, you're building equity compounding, getting into new rooms. Who are new people that you're meeting that then you can refer to new opportunities that you didn't have in your proximity network before, and vice versa. Who now can they refer you to? So if you believe in the concept of service at face value, you need to really get clear on the community that you're building and how you actually have shown up for them in the past, what is true about your character that you've been known for. And now in this new light, how are you being known for it compounded with this identity? Because we're all walking into shifts. New shifts don't necessarily mean new business. You could hold a new title at a new company or the same company, a new title. But either way, we're always starting on building something. And if we think about what it's like to be that beginner, there's always something that can be given as an exchange, and that will compound grow to getting to that financial prosperity that you're looking for.
I love that. And so for you personally, there's this, I can't even remember who taught it, but they talk about the 4 constraints, right? Which is lead flow, offers, sales, and fulfillment. Where does it break down most frequently for you personally in business? At the top of the funnel, or is it somewhere down at the down?
I would say lead flow, particularly because I straddle between coaching and consulting. And I think obviously being newer to the space, in the beginning, you're so hungry to have the revenues validate who you are, especially when you come from a marketing and sales background. You get fixated on the quantitative versus the qualitative. And you want to make sure that, you can stand the test of time. But the reality is that you do need to build your network in a new light. And I think for me in the beginning, I was just so stuck on a number that I wanted to hit, leaving the corporate handcuff gloves and being able to walk into that and not disassociate myself with my identity. But I had to let that go. And it was a tough pill to swallow. And still sometimes it is a tough pill to swallow. But for me, lead flow is something that I've become a lot more deliberate on within the past 4 months, specifically, of actually getting it down. In the beginning, I wanted to pay to speak in rooms, specifically for my coaching business. And to what degree? I'm not rich. I don't have like this nest egg that, I'm building my business against. So I had to realize, though, that a lot of people were going to come out of the woodwork and tell me that this was the best investment model for me. And it's great. And I do believe that there is some skin in the game that you have to have, but you also have to have a true diagnostic of how you're evaluating opportunities, how you're evaluating your lead flows. Because I would get into those rooms, then all of a sudden the system that I knew to rely on was thrown out the door. I was just so happy to get invited to speak that I didn't have any calls to action. I had nothing that was going to say, okay, this was actually return on investment for me, because I thought by osmosis, people would just think this is an amazing talk. And I'm so articulate that, of course, why would they not? And
of course, yes, let me smell your
why not?
I couldn't take my car.
And shock and awe, obviously that didn't work. So just things that you take for granted working because the title has been given you for so long and you're working towards responsibilities versus driving career-oriented action become so real for you as a business owner. And I'm humble enough to admit those mistakes because I feel like they're what compounded my growth, because I get actually excited by failing these days. I failed so much in my first year that I've actually grown more in the past 12, 18 months than I have specifically in 2 decades worth of corporate. Yes, I was chasing my own promotions and I got all the way up to the C-suite, but they didn't look like they were developing my character. They were just a trajectory that I was told to do like everybody else, keep climbing the corporate ladder. And they weren't on my own terms, and they weren't like I was actually accomplishing everything from start to finish. So being a solopreneur is truly hard. Being humble is hard, but I care less about what people think about the limitations of what I've had. And to me, the advancements that I've been able to achieve mean so much more to me and are so much more fulfilling to the unlock of what I think this promise is that I have in terms of stepping into this new light, that I'm willing to walk that journey and be fully candid about it.
I was talking with a gal the other day. She says, I've been an accountant for 30 years. I'm a great accountant. I'm the best accountant. So I gave myself a name and I made an LLC. And I was like, I am now a free agent.
Declaration.
I built it, but nobody came. And the reason for that, which I think I've addressed this a couple times on some other episodes, is I asked ChatGPT, how was it in Field of Dreams that Kevin Costner got the message, build it and they will come?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen at the beginning of the movie. Like I don't know,
right.
It's in the middle, right? And I said, why is that true for the movie, but not true for me? Right? Why is that?
I love that you asked that.
And ChatGPT said, well, Virginia, I actually do think you've done it like Kevin Costner. So I was like, okay, the average solo entrepreneur, right? Like, the point was that what we do is we build our skill set. Mm-hmm. Then we build an entity. And then if you're a coach, consultant, author, speaker, whatever, we write a book, write a speech, create a course, do a lead magnet. We do a bunch of creating, and then we wait for people to come.
That's right.
In the movie, he created, the demand was latent.
Yeah.
And people were so hungry that when he built it, they were already collaborating in it. And such a funny story. We just launched our 4th or 5th BNI chapter this year, which launching 1 in a year is amazing. Launching 4 or 5 in a year.
Wow. Radical.
Right? Super crazy. But this person that has been on my team for a number of years built a chapter a while ago, whatever. He didn't like the process. And he was like, I don't like this. I'm going to have to figure out another way. So what he did for a whole year was say, I'm going to build a BNI chapter right here. Yeah. I'm going to build a BNI chapter right here. I'm going to build a B&I chapter right here. And then they were like, well, when are you going to build that B&I chapter? Not yet. More people. We need more interest. We need more people. And then he'd get calls like, hey, I found a couple more people that are interested. I found a few more people that were interested. They launched a chapter of 20 in 8 weeks. It's like faster than ever. And I said, 8 weeks. And he said, no, not 8 weeks. A year and 8 weeks.
All this time.
I was planting seeds and they'd say, when can we start? And he'd be like, nope, needs a little more fertilizer, some water. We're not doing that yet. No, the fruit's not ripe enough yet. The fruit's not ripe enough yet. So I think there's something to be said for, and that's the marketing piece. How am I creating the demand? How am I creating the demand before I launch? And most people create a bunch of stuff and then try to sell it. And what I found to be way more important is to have a lot of conversations. I'm thinking about creating this thing. I'm thinking about this thing. I'm considering blah, blah, blah. Would that be helpful for you? Would that be interesting for you? And finding out that someone says, yes, that would be really interesting for me. So then you build it and then you can sell it. Which I think is really, really key. All right. We are coming up on time here. So it is time to turn the tables. Melissa, what questions do you have for me?
Yes. Taking a step back to your younger self when you started, what were some of the glaring points that you would go back and tell yourself something different, a narrative that was in your own head?
One of the things that I would say probably one of the earliest mistakes I made was I worked with a coach for the whole speak to sell thing, right? So I learned the structure of we didn't have webinars back then because I'm old. Okay. So we didn't have webinars. We had to rent a room and hand out tickets and get people there. We had to fill a room and then we had a flip chart, T. Harv Eker style. And then it was get up, go to the back of the room, buy my whatever. Okay. So what happened for me was I could close about 10 to 15% of the room. Okay. Not bad.
Yeah.
But there were other buyers in the room. So, but in my psyche, what I did was I said, okay, this 10% of the people in the room like me and they all hate me and they're dead to me. So I was like Kevin O'Leary, you're dead to me.
I love it.
Like you're gone. When a friend of mine, her name is Lori Fabian, she came to me and she said, you need an assistant because you're just dropping you're dropping balls all over the place. And I'm like, I'm not dropping any balls. Because what she was seeing was that there was no follow-up with people who had some interest, but they needed more attention before they were going to swipe their credit card.
Yes.
And so I met with this virtual assistant. His name's Mike. And I told him I didn't have any money. I'm like, I don't have money for you. I don't have money for this. I don't have money for that. And he said, well, what's the one thing you're not doing that's costing you money? Basically, okay, well, what's the one thing I could do for you that you're not doing that would get both of us paid? And that's when it dawned on me. I was like, well, you know what? All the people that walk out of the room, so if there's 50 people in a room and 5 or 6 people sign up, the other 40, 45 people, I never talk to them again. If I see them at a networking event, I walk the other way because I'm butthurt. And once Mike started calling, the in-event conversion rate didn't really change all that much, but the back-end conversion rate moved from about 10% to about 30, 35%.
That's amazing.
Because he spent time calling and saying, what did you think of the event? What struck you as positive? What struck you as, not so positive? What stopped you from going to the back of the room? And I got a lot of really good feedback. Some of it I didn't much care about because I was like, some people are just not your clients. So when some people come and tell you to be who you're not and do what you don't, they're not my client.
Not going to land. Yeah.
It doesn't land. But I think it was that little girl in me that never really had a lot of friends and always kind of felt rejected by all the cool kids and whatever. Mm-hmm. I just didn't want to deal with them.
Yeah.
And that was probably my biggest mistake early.
Yeah. Hi. In today's day and age, what do you think are the top 3 things that people get wrong about referrals and networking and how they're going about it?
I think one of the big ones, and I see this in my clients and I see this across my BNI franchise. People right now seem to be joining things expecting magic. So I'm going to join the chamber and magically people will give me referrals because I'm a member. Like I'm going to get referrals because I'm a member, or my business is going to grow because I joined the thing. Well, that's like joining the gym and thinking that when I need my joiner fee, my butt was going to look great in a Brazilian bikini, right? Like not so much. I mean, I have to go in and put the work in. So most people right now are not putting in a consistent effort to expand their network on a daily basis. Expanding your network, reaching out to people, connecting with people, calling people, having meetings with people, having conversations with people, getting new names, building a list, working from a list every single day. They're really not putting in the effort to find strangers they can turn into friends. So I think that's a big one. Another one is I think most coaches and consultants at the early stage are putting the cart way before the horse. Some of them have bought the cart, but they don't have a horse and they can't figure out why they can't get the cart to move. I'm like, well, because that cart requires a horse.
Right.
So for example, when you say, I'm going to go pay to get on a stage, but you don't have a message yet. I mean, I see people do this all the time. They'll plunk down $5,000 to go sponsor a Speak to Sell event. And I'm like, but you don't have a message and you don't have a product and you have nothing.
Yeah.
Going to make that $5,000 pay you anything. Just if you have it to waste, knock your socks off. But hey, maybe start with some Toastmasters or a TEDx talk or, something. Start somewhere else. Making lead magnets, buying every freaking AI platform, every new AI platform that comes out, somebody gets excited about. And they buy on adrenaline and dopamine.
That's right.
When you're in front of a really good salesperson, that you've got adrenaline and dopamine triggers. They're just flowing.
Yes.
Flowing through your veins in a way that the only way that you can get relief is to go swipe your credit card. And so when I onboard my clients, they sign a waiver, and the waiver is I will not buy anything on dopamine without talking.
I love that.
Like I have to wait 24 hours, and we use Marco Polo. It's a asynchronous video app, and they have to send me they can send me a polo from an event. Oh my God, I'm at this event, and I don't know what right? Like they have to call me first because I can tell them whether or not they should or they shouldn't. Now, my referral partners get a little irritated with me, like, why are you talking them out of buying? I said, I'm not talking them out of buying. I'm talking them out of buying right now. I'm buying, as soon as you get this done, that plugs in here. But if you add it on now, it's just going to distract you from doing this thing that will make that thing make you money.
Yes.
But you'll just have another thing in your barn, like another cart in your barn that doesn't go anywhere because you still don't have a darn horse.
Yep.
So you've got to get your horse. So I think that's another one that it proliferated during COVID. It was particularly challenging during those online COVID years. We had money to spend and nothing better to do with our time.
Yeah. And just a lot of desperation.
We developed really dumb habits, like unproductive human habits. No doubt. I drank a little too much wine and ate far too many potato chips. I'm not going to lie. And I still have rice and beans in my house from then because while y'all were stocking up on toilet paper, I felt a need to have rice and beans in my house.
And things with life.
And as I'm buying this stuff, I'm like, this is really weird because cognitively, I know this is dumb. But I just had, so we all developed these weird
triggers.
Things. But now's the time to not allow those things that we did during a really insecure crisis moment. We got addicted to those things and they got to go. So I think not building a foundation, I think, is really another one. And I think the last one is this one thing. I think I engaged my first coach in the coaching industry. It was Callan Rush and Justin Livingston. And I think I engaged them in 2013. Okay. And I went all in. They had they had 3 modules. I was like, do not nickel and dime me. Just tell me what the whole thing is. Cause I'm going to, you're doing it. I'm going to do what you're doing. Right. I'm going to ride on your coattail. I'm going to be the skis behind your speedboat. I'm not going anywhere. So I finished that engagement. And then I engaged with Jay Facette, who at the time had JVology. All in hard, right? 25, 30 grand, all in hard. Then I worked with Steve Olsher and Icon Maker, all in. So I've never done the 297, 997, 197, 297, 990. I haven't bought those little piecemeal trickle things. Yeah. And I do attribute that to a lot of my confidence in business and a lot of my success, because I started and it was a 1 or a 2 year program and I saw it all the way to its final conclusion each time. And that's why my program is 2 years. I'm like, just come all in with me and get you where you need to go before you're nickel and diming yourself to death.
Exactly. When stretching too thin.
Call me. And if it's appropriate, like if it meets a need or fulfills something that you need that I can't provide for you, then by all means, I'm going to say, yes, you should do that. But 95% of the time, I can fulfill those needs for a client. They don't need to pay for it because I can actually fulfill it. So
yeah, fantastic.
I think those are some of the big ones.
Cool. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. You got anything else?
No.
All right. So, Melissa, I'm so glad we had to have this conversation. Thank you for such amazingly thoughtful questions. And how can our listener get a hold of you? What's the best way for them to connect?
The best way is on LinkedIn. So I spend a lot of time there, Melissa-Sierra, or email is also best. So msierra, SIERRA @focalpointcoaching.com.
Excellent. We will put that in the show notes for sure. Melissa, Sierra, first of all, I love your vocabulary. I love what you're up to in the world, your view of leadership and the points that you make. And I'm really glad that we had this opportunity to jump on the Business by Referral podcast. So thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me and for also putting me in a nice spotlight to be able to share with your listeners.
For you who are listening, if this is your first time with us, do make sure that you go to bbrpodcast.com, click on the gift vault and grab your Business by Referral blueprint. It is updated now with videos and QR codes and workbooks and all kinds of fun stuff to help you create a business that is powered by referrals. And until we meet again on the next episode, be remarkable.
Thanks for listening to the Business by Referral podcast. Be sure to check today's show notes where you'll find all the important stuff you want to remember and forgot to write down. Want more information on how you can build a business relationship that produces measurable results? Go to www.masterconnectors.com/ebook to download your free chapter of Virginia's book, Referral Alchemy, and discover the proven formula for turning your network into gold. Remember, we'd love to hear from you, so remember to subscribe, rate, and review the show. And until we meet again, be remarkable.